She never thought that something as small as a comment could stay inside her mind like a shadow. She liked the piano since childhood, not because she had lessons or a teacher who pushed her, but because she loved how her fingers felt when they touched the keys. Even the basic sound of a simple note used to make her feel calm. At home, the piano stood near the window, a slightly old one with faded keys. She did not play perfectly, but she played honestly, and that mattered to her. When she would sit and press the keys, she felt at peace. She played gentle tunes, sometimes repeating notes until they sounded right. She did not know the technical names or formal scales. All she knew was that she enjoyed it. She enjoyed it so much that even when her fingers slipped or the notes did not come out smoothly, she still smiled. There came a day when people gathered at a family event. Music was always part of these gatherings, and someone asked if anyone wanted to play. She did not step forward quickly. Instead, she waited. She hoped someone else would go first. But when no one moved, she stood up, almost shyly, and sat at the piano. The room was filled with low chatter. People were eating and laughing. She placed her fingers on the keys and played a small tune she made on her own. It was soft, simple, and unsure at first. The sound felt shaky, but once she reached the part she remembered well, her hand steadied. Some people looked up and smiled. Some nodded to the rhythm, even though it was not perfect. She could hear a mistake here and there. She pressed a wrong key twice, maybe 3 times, but she continued anyway. When she finished, a few clapped politely. Most smiled at her effort. She felt warm inside. She was not proud of perfection. She was proud of courage. But then came a voice that cut through all the good feelings. It was someone sitting on the side. Someone she respected because he often talked confidently. He did not clap. He leaned back, half smirking. That was not real piano playing. You're just pressing keys randomly. She heard it louder in her mind than it was spoken. Her smile faded just a little. She tried to ignore it. She tried to stay calm. Others heard it too. A few people laughed awkwardly, not because they agreed, but because people laugh when they do not know what else to do. He continued talking casually as if his comment meant nothing. If you want to play in front of people, at least learn properly. That sounded like a kid trying to play. He said it like he was giving advice, but the tone was heavy, almost mocking. She forced a smile and walked away. Her hands felt cold even though nothing was cold around her. People came to talk to her afterward, telling her not to mind him. They said she played fine. They said she made everyone feel relaxed. But the words that stayed were his. For days, she thought of it. She replayed the moment as if her mind refused to move forward. Was she really just pressing random keys? Was she trying too hard? Should she stop playing when others were around? She sat by her piano that night. She pressed the same keys she had pressed earlier, but now it did not feel peaceful. Every note reminded her of that sentence. She practiced, not to prove herself to anyone, but to prove something to her own heart. She played again and again, trying to fix the mistakes she remembered from that day. Her fingers moved slowly, then faster, then slowly again. But she did not feel joy that night, only pressure. The next morning, she thought of quitting. She told herself no one cared about her music anyway. But when she sat at her piano again, something small changed. She pressed just one note, a gentle single note, and let it ring. That sound did not belong to criticism. It did not belong to judgment. It belonged to her. She closed her eyes and pressed it again, slowly, softly, not trying to impress. Not trying to be perfect, just trying to reconnect. In those small moments, she remembered why she started playing at all. When she was younger, she used to sit alone and play that same note whenever she felt sad or confused. The piano did not ask questions. It did not judge. It simply responded. At the gathering, the moment had been public, but now in her room, playing that note was private. Over the next days, she tried not to think about him, but sometimes, when she walked past someone, she wondered what they thought of her. She wondered if everyone secretly believed she was not good enough. Still, she kept practicing. She kept pressing the same small patterns she remembered from her childhood. And sometimes she made mistakes, just like before. But each time she did, she fixed them patiently. When she played alone, she was not nervous. She did not shake. She did not rush. She breathed differently, as if the piano guided her. There were days when she still thought of quitting. Then something stronger inside her said she should keep playing. Maybe she would never be like those who trained for years. Maybe she would never perform in big halls. But that was not the point. She only wanted to play because the sound meant something to her. And she realized something else too. When he mocked her, he never asked how long she had been learning. He never asked whether she ever had training. He never asked if the music helped her or supported her through anything. He only judged she did not want to become like that. Some people measure others quickly because they speak from ego, not kindness. She realized that people like that often do not understand that effort carries value. Trying matters. Heart matters. One evening, she played again while someone else in her house listened quietly from another room. When she stopped, that person came to her. "I like how you play," the person said softly. "You don't rush it. It sounds calm." She nodded slowly. She was still not sure. "That's because I practice a lot now," she whispered. "No," the person said gently. "It's because when you play, you mean it." Those words stayed differently. They felt like warmth, not weight. They felt like someone seeing her heart rather than her mistakes. That night, she sat at the piano again. She played the same tune she played that day at the gathering. It was smoother now, steadier, but not perfect. She smiled again, her real smile this time, not because she proved something, but because she was still playing. She thought about the moment when everything changed, when one small sentence tried to shut her down, and she realized something very quiet but very true. People's opinions stay only if you let them stay. That night, when she closed the fallboard of the piano, she did not feel defeated. She felt like someone who was still learning, someone who was still growing, someone who kept trying without needing applause. She walked away from the piano, but for the first time since that day, she walked without carrying those hurtful words inside her. Even though she did not play perfectly, she played with heart, and that was enough for her. She was not expecting to enter a music studio, not even as a guest, but sometimes life places people in unexpected rooms, at unexpected times. It happened when her friend asked if she could come along to provide support before an audition. Her friend was nervous and knew that she brought calmness even when she wasn't trying. So she agreed. She felt it was just a short visit, nothing more. The music studio was brighter than she imagined. The walls had soft acoustic padding, and the lights were warm, not too sharp. There were people moving around, some carrying sheet music, others tuning instruments. She could hear soft piano notes coming from one room, then guitar chords from another. The whole place sounded alive. She stood near the entrance for a while, letting her eyes adjust. She did not belong in such a place, or at least that was what her mind told her. She did not have a musical background, no lessons, no official knowledge. She was simply someone who played at home, for herself. Her friend had to sign a form, so she waited and observed. She noticed how people spoke in musical terms: keys, chords, harmonics, timing, words she often heard but never fully understood. Yet something about that place felt gentle. Even though everyone looked serious about their craft, nobody seemed unkind. A large grand piano sat in the center of the waiting area. Its surface was smooth, shining softly even under the warm lights. She stared at it for a moment. It was different from her old piano at home. This one looked confident, like it knew thousands of songs already. She sat down on a long bench and watched the people come and go. Some looked nervous. Some looked excited. Some looked like they belonged there. She didn't, not really. But she still sat quietly. There were posters on the wall, posters of young musicians who once auditioned there, and later performed publicly. She wondered how much work existed behind those smiling faces. Her friend returned, still nervous. "Don't leave," her friend said softly. She nodded. She wouldn't leave. Soon after, someone called her friend's name and guided them inside. She followed, assuming she could stand near the back, but before stepping into the main room, a staff member told her the waiting area would be better. So she stepped back. The door closed, and she was alone again. She didn't know that anything meaningful would happen that day. She was only waiting. Time moved slowly. People took turns auditioning. Occasionally, someone failed, leaving with disappointed eyes. Others walked out with relieved laughter. At one point, a man arrived holding a tablet. He talked to a small group of visitors. From where she sat, she heard him say something about demonstrating tone recognition and musical confidence. A few people gathered around. She sat quietly, unsure whether she should move closer or stay where she was. The man gestured toward the grand piano and asked if anyone knew something about pitch alignment. She didn't even know what that meant. Still, she watched. Someone whispered behind her, "This studio always does small mini lessons like this. Sometimes they invite people to try something. It's fun." She turned slightly, nodded, then looked ahead again. The man pressed a single note on the piano, soft, measured. Then he asked, "Does anyone want to try something simple?" It doesn't have to be a song. It can be a sound. Her heart pulsed heavily, not because she wanted to participate, but because she feared he might pick her randomly. There were many people there. Someone else would step forward. Why would it be her? But nobody moved. Everyone hesitated. People looked around, waiting for someone else to raise a hand. She thought of her piano at home, thought of her quiet practice sessions, thought of the words that once crushed her. She lowered her eyes. What if she accidentally embarrassed herself again? What if someone laughed? She almost stood up and moved to a corner where she could not be seen. But something stopped her. Maybe it was the silence. Maybe it was the way nobody else stepped forward. Maybe it was something small inside her that remembered how much she once enjoyed simply playing. Her hand lifted. She didn't plan it. It simply rose. The man noticed. Would you like to try? He asked calmly. She swallowed the fear that was rising inside her and walked slowly toward the piano. People stepped aside, creating a space without speaking. She reached the piano bench, sat down, and placed her hands near the keys. She didn't touch them yet. All eyes were on her. She could feel the pause in the room. Her chest tightened. She took a breath. She remembered how she always warmed up at home by pressing one simple note. So she did exactly that. She pressed the center key. Just one. Soft. Quiet. The note echoed slightly around the room. People waited for more. She pressed it again. Same note, but slower. She didn't speak. She didn't even look up. The note guided her. She pressed it a third time, but now she pressed with a slightly longer hold. Different timing. Same sound. She repeated it again, adding a pause between each touch. The man smiled faintly. He turned to the audience and said, "This is how musical identity begins. Not through difficult pieces, not through big performance, but through intention." People listened closely. She pressed the note again, a little stronger this time, letting it ring longer. Then she lifted her hand away. Nothing more, just that. She slowly stood, unsure whether she had done something wrong. She expected laughter, someone mocking her, someone calling her out for being basic. But nobody laughed, nobody rolled their eyes, nobody whispered negatively. Instead, people were actually impressed, not because the note was complicated, but because she played it with expression without being told what to do. Someone whispered, "That's actually nice. It is rhythm." Someone else said, "It's intentional." She stood beside the piano for a moment after pressing that final soft note, unsure of what she should do next. The room was silent, not an uncomfortable silence, but one filled with quiet attention. She stepped back slightly, thinking someone else would immediately move forward and replace her. But nobody moved. The man who had invited her gave a gentle nod, almost like approval. He turned to the others and said, "Expression doesn't need many notes. Confidence doesn't start with complexity. It starts with awareness of sound. Sometimes one note is enough." She wanted to walk away quickly, but something inside her slowed her steps. She sat back down at the bench beside the wall and watched the small demonstration continue. She was not part of it anymore, but it felt like she had become a quiet piece of that moment. The man continued speaking about tone, pitch, timing, and how music was not always about playing a full song. He explained that recognizing a single sound and shaping it with intention could make someone stand out. She listened, not because she planned to join anything again, but because she was curious now. Curious why such a simple act, pressing one note, felt heavier than an entire song. Another participant, someone with formal training, stepped up and played a short piece. It was delicate, complex, and full of movement. People admired that performance too, but strangely, she didn't compare herself to them. She didn't feel smaller. Not anymore. The man paused and looked toward where she sat. "Come back for a second," he said. Her heart jumped. She froze. Was he calling her again? She looked around to confirm. He was. She walked slowly, almost scared again. When she reached the piano, he said, "Press the same note like before, but count between each press. Just count silently in your mind." She nodded. She didn't understand the purpose, but she trusted the moment. She pressed the note again. 1, 2, 3. She counted inside. Another soft press. Again. Same sound, different spacing. The man then asked someone else to join by tapping their palm gently on the piano's wooden side. And someone did. That tapping followed her timing. Then someone else hummed gently. It was soft at first, then clearer. They were not matching pitch, they were simply following rhythm. Suddenly, her single note became part of something bigger. It was no longer a lonely sound, it was a direction, a start, a foundation. The man looked at the room and explained, "Every song starts with one decision. One sound that begins everything. She lifted her finger from the key, almost trembling but in a new way. Not from panic, but from surprise. When she stepped back, people watched her differently, not mockingly, not dismissing her. They actually respected something she didn't even intend to create. She sat down again. This time, her heart was lighter. There was a soft applause, not loud, not dramatic, but appreciative. She didn't expect applause. She didn't think she deserved it, but she accepted it with soft gratitude. Her friend returned from the audition room soon after. Did something happen? Her friend asked. She smiled gently. Not really. Just pressed a note. Her friend laughed, thinking she meant it lightly. They didn't understand that something silent had shifted inside her later. The instructor began a short conversation with everyone there. She listened from near the back. He talked about how people often wait for perfection before trying anything in public. Everybody wants flawless performance, he said. But real growth begins from simple, honest attempts. She felt the words settle inside her. When the session ended, people began leaving. Some walked with their instruments. Others looked at the posters near the wall. She remained seated for a while longer, observing the space. One woman walked up to her quietly. I liked how you played, she said. She looked surprised. I didn't really play. It was only one note. That's why I liked it, the woman replied. It was unexpected. She gave a small nod. Unexpected. Yes. Even to herself. She stood up, ready to leave. Her friend walked beside her, holding a folder from the audition. They headed toward the exit, and she turned for one last look. The grand piano didn't feel intimidating anymore. It didn't feel like a place she didn't belong. Instead, it felt familiar, like her piano at home, only larger. On the way out, her friend said, You looked confident back there. She laughed softly. I wasn't, maybe not outside, her friend said, but something about you looked steady. She didn't argue. Some truths don't need debate. When they stepped into the outside air, she noticed that evening light had begun settling across the street. The wind was gentle, not cold. People walked by, unaware of what she experienced inside that building. She walked slowly. She replayed the moment when she raised her hand. She replayed that single note, that soft applause, that quiet shift. They reached a small food place nearby. Her friend ordered something, but she didn't. Hunger wasn't what she felt. Instead, she felt something like peace, something like relief. Her friend looked at her again. Did you enjoy coming? I did, she replied, and it was true. When she returned home later that day, the first thing she did was go to her piano. She didn't even change clothes. She sat down and placed her fingers on the same familiar keys. She pressed the same note, the same way. Slow. Soft. Then again. This time, she felt something new. Not pressure, not fear, not insecurity. She felt clarity. She was not trying to impress anyone. She was not trying to fix her past mistakes or prove anything. She pressed the note again, and she smiled. She wasn't proud because people reacted well. She was proud because she didn't run away from something that once hurt her. She remembered the person who once mocked her. Those words that used to feel sharp no longer had their place. They didn't echo through her fingers anymore. She played that note again and again, this time adding a slight pattern, almost rhythmic. She didn't need a full song. That single note guided her, and she knew without needing anyone else to say it that she had just begun something, not a performance, not a career. Just a journey. And journeys sometimes begin with one step, or in her case, one simple note. She stayed seated for a while even after everyone started talking among themselves. It was not loud talking, just quiet conversations about what had just happened. People said things like they had never expected something so simple to feel so meaningful. Others said they never looked at music in that way before. She listened but did not say much. Her heart felt warm, almost as if she had finally done something she had been holding back for a long time. The instructor walked over and sat next to her. He smiled, not in a way that judged her or expected anything, but like someone who respected what she just did. He told her that music was never about making others feel impressed. Music was about feeling something real and letting that feeling travel through sound. He explained that even one note could carry a story if played with intention. She nodded, not needing to say much, because she understood. She never knew that pressing one note could make people stop what they were doing and listen. Usually when she played at home, it was the sound of a room with nobody paying attention. She would play random keys, stumble, repeat them, and laugh a little at herself. But here, in that studio, pressing that single note felt different. It felt like she made a space where everyone could breathe without rushing. The instructor talked about how music is often rushed. People want to jump into fast songs, complicated pieces, flashy rhythms. But he said something that stayed with her. He said that music begins slow. It begins with breathing. It begins with one sound that tells others what emotion is coming. She wondered how long it would take before she could play more than a single note. With that same confidence, others around had started discussing her moment as if it were something big, though to her it still felt very small. Someone said they wished they had volunteered. Someone else said they would have pressed too many keys trying to show off. She smiled at that because she knew she probably would have tried that too. If not for how nervous she felt, her friend came up and hugged her. There were no big words spoken, just a simple look that said, "You did something brave." She appreciated that more than applause. She walked outside to clear her mind. Even though nothing physically changed, everything felt different. The afternoon air was soft, not cold, not hot, just still. She could still feel the piano key under her finger. That single note repeated in her head, not as sound but as meaning. She kept thinking of all the times she doubted herself. Every moment she believed that one person's opinion meant she was not good enough. She remembered how it started. That moment of criticism that made her question herself. She remembered the tone used, the way it was said, the expression behind it. But strangely, thinking about it did not hurt anymore. The memory was still there, but it did not sting. It was now connected to what she had just done. She realized the moment that once felt heavy had now become light. When she stepped back inside, the instructor was finishing up, giving feedback to others. No one made her feel small for playing just one note. No one laughed, no one dismissed her effort. Instead, it felt as though they all understood why she had chosen that single sound. Eventually everyone left the studio. Her friend kept thanking the instructor and talking about what a wonderful lesson it had been. She walked toward the piano again. One last time before leaving, she pressed that same note again, not loudly, just soft enough for her to hear. It sounded different now, or maybe she was different now. On the way home, she thought about music in a way she never had. She wondered if she had ever played for herself before. She realized she always played hoping someone else would like it. But now she thought about playing for her own heart so that she could feel present, with her own sound. Later that night, she sat by the small keyboard in her living room. The lights were dim and the house was quiet. She pressed the same note, then another one, but slowly. She took her time. There was no rush, no pressure. She played simple patterns, not trying to sound impressive. Just honest. She remembered the way people in that room had listened, how gently they reacted, and how no one laughed. That moment awakened something she almost forgot she had: confidence. Not loud confidence, not the kind that tries to show off, but quiet confidence, the kind that stays. She played again, letting her fingers move even though she did not fully know what she was doing. But this time she did not stop halfway. She did not feel embarrassed. She was simply playing. Before she went to sleep, she caught herself smiling for no reason. She felt like she finally belonged somewhere, not in a competition, not in a performance, but in the simple space between sound and silence. The memory of that single note would replay again and again, not because it was musically special, but because it was the moment she realized that she deserved to take up space. That night she fell asleep knowing that something inside her had shifted. Maybe it was not dramatic. Maybe it was not something others would talk about forever. But for her, it mattered. She woke up earlier than usual the next morning. The sunlight was barely showing through the window curtains. For some reason, she felt light, almost as if someone had taken something heavy off her shoulders in the night. She sat up, looked around her room, and suddenly remembered the piano studio. That small moment, that single note. She replayed it in her head like it was something important, something that didn't look big from the outside but felt large on the inside. Her eyes went toward the piano again, the familiar shape standing quietly near the window. She walked toward it and sat down. She didn't rush. She simply rested her fingers gently on the keys and pressed the same note like she did yesterday. And strangely, it sounded different, not in tone, because one note doesn't change but in meaning. She wasn't pressing it to fix something now. She pressed it because she liked the sound. She let it echo, soft and full. She pressed again, slower, letting the small vibration fill the room. She remembered how the instructor had explained the meaning behind a single sound. Intention, he said. Expression. Awareness. She didn't understand everything he meant, but she understood enough. She was controlling the sound, not just making noise. She played again, same note. Same timing, but this time, she added a second note next to it. Nothing complex, just one beside another. She repeated them like small footsteps, soft, soft, soft. After some time, she stood up and began getting ready for her day. She didn't talk much about yesterday, not even to her friend. Some feelings feel better when they stay private for a little while. That afternoon, her friend called and asked how she felt. "I'm good," she said. "You were brave," her friend replied. "I don't think I could have sat there and pressed just one note." She thought about that. It didn't feel brave when she did it. It felt like she was doing the smallest possible thing. But sometimes the smallest things carry the deepest energy. Later that week, someone from the studio sent a small message to her friend saying that the instructor was offering open sessions again. Her friend asked if she wanted to come along. At first, she wanted to say no. She was afraid that if she returned, that moment wouldn't feel special anymore. Maybe it would just disappear if repeated. But then she thought about how she used to hide whenever she felt judged. She didn't want to be that person anymore. "I'll come," she answered. They walked back into the studio that weekend. The place looked the same: warm lights, quiet rooms, soft footsteps passing by. But this time, she didn't feel like someone who didn't belong. She felt like someone who had been here before. The instructor recognized her. He smiled lightly, not in a dramatic way, but in a polite, respectful way. "I remember you," he said. The silent note player. She almost blushed. She didn't speak, but she smiled. He asked the group to sit again. Every chair was placed in a circle. The grand piano was still in the center, untouched and shining. He began speaking, not like a teacher, but like someone sharing something from experience. "You can build a song from one note," he began. "A simple sound can hold meaning, whether it's sadness, joy, memory, or clarity. If you play with intention, people will feel it." She listened. He continued. "When someone presses a key, the sound is honest. It cannot hide." The sentence caught something inside her. Honest sound. That meant music didn't need to impress anyone. It just needed honesty. The instructor continued teaching other people too. Some played full songs. Some played scales. Some tried complicated rhythms. Then he asked her to come again. "Play the same note," he said. She did. The room stayed quiet. "That is meaning," he said. He turned to others and explained. "Sometimes musicians forget that sound isn't decoration. It is communication." That simple note carried clarity. People didn't applaud dramatically. They didn't treat her like someone special. But they also didn't see her as someone unskilled. They simply saw her. That was new for her. After the session, she stayed a little longer and spoke to him privately. "I never learned anything formally," she said softly. "That may help you," he replied. "Sometimes formal learning blocks pure feeling. You play like someone who listens before touching the keys." She didn't know how to respond to that, so she simply nodded. When she left that day, she realized that meaning doesn't always come from approval. Sometimes meaning comes from someone noticing sincerity. Days passed, and something changed in her playing routine. She didn't sit at the piano to fix mistakes anymore. She sat to feel things. Sometimes she pressed one asterisk. She woke up the next morning feeling lighter. It was not because her life had suddenly changed, or because anyone had said something big or dramatic. It was simply because she no longer carried the same weight she once did. The sound of that single piano note stayed with her like a reminder. Not loud, not dramatic, just clear. She started her day slowly. She opened the window, let the sun fall into the room, and then sat in front of her keyboard again. She pressed the same note she had pressed so many times the night before. It sounded gentle in the morning air. She knew she had a lot to learn, but that did not bother her anymore. She was not trying to impress anyone. She spent time going over that single note, then two notes, then small patterns that she could remember. They were not complicated. She made mistakes. She laughed quietly at them. Not the embarrassed laugh that hides behind discomfort, but the kind that shows someone is finally comfortable being imperfect. As she continued practicing, her phone vibrated on the table. It was a short message telling her that someone had heard about what happened at the studio. She read it and paused. It was from someone who once made her feel like she did not belong at a piano. She stared at the message for a while, not knowing what to reply. The text asked if the story was true that she sat in front of a group of people and pressed just one note. She placed the phone face down without answering. In the past, she would have explained herself. She would have tried to justify why she did what she did. She would have apologized for not being better, for being too simple, too basic. But this time, she did not want to explain anything. She looked at her keyboard again. Each key had its own meaning. Each note could say something. She no longer needed words. Later that day, she went outside for a walk. The sunlight felt warm, and she breathed deeper than she had in a long time. She passed a small music shop. The window displayed various instruments: violins, guitars, ukuleles, sheet music, and a small digital keyboard for beginners. She stopped for a moment and looked at it. Something about that beginner keyboard made her smile. She walked inside. The owner greeted her kindly. She explained that she was not there to buy anything big. She was just looking. He smiled and said she was welcome to stay as long as she wanted. She sat at the display keyboard and pressed the same note she had been playing for days. The sound was different, but it still held meaning. She played a simple small tune, not perfect, not complicated but honest. The owner listened quietly without interrupting. When she finished, he said something she did not expect. He said that music is not about the number of notes, but the truth behind them. Music can be simple and still change something inside someone. She nodded and thanked him. She continued walking afterward. She passed by buildings, trees, shops, people who had no idea about anything she was experiencing. And for the first time, she felt free. When she arrived home, her keyboard waited in silence. She sat again and pressed the single note softly. Then she began creating a small rhythm around it. She did not think much about it. She just played what felt right. Time passed, and she found herself practicing every day, not hours at a time, not out of pressure, but because it made her feel calm. The sound of her playing filled the room and became part of her daily life. Some days she played only one note. Some days she played many. On difficult days, that one note was enough to make her breathe again. One afternoon, her friend from the studio sent her a message. They told her about a small community event happening the following week. Nothing big, just a local gathering where people who enjoyed music could share little pieces. They encouraged her to come. She did not know if she was ready. She did not know if she wanted to sit in front of strangers again. But something inside her told her that she should go, not to perform, not to impress, just to be part of something. When the day arrived, she walked into a small community hall. There were not many people. A few families, some older folks, a couple of teenagers, and a few musicians who had brought their instruments. There was a piano at the front. She stared at it for a moment and wondered if she was brave enough to sit there. People laughed, clapped, listened to small performances. Some played guitar, some sang, and one person recited a poem. When her turn came, she walked up slowly. She could feel her heart racing a little, but it was not fear, just awareness. She sat at the piano and let her hands rest on her lap for a moment. She took a breath. She was not here to be someone she was not. She simply wanted to show something true. She pressed that same familiar note. The room became still. She pressed it again with a slightly different rhythm. Then she added another note. Not many, just enough to form something soft. She played a small piece she had made accidentally while practicing. It was short, less than a minute long, but it carried something inside it that words could not explain. When she finished, no one clapped immediately, not because they did not like it, but because the moment felt quiet. Then the applause started, gentle, honest applause. She smiled, not proudly, but peacefully. Someone in the audience said, "That was beautiful, so soft, but it stayed with us." She thanked them and sat down. After the gathering, a few people came to talk to her. They said her playing made them feel calm. Someone said it reminded them of a memory from childhood, something gentle and safe. She listened, surprised that something so small could make people feel something. She walked home later that night, and she did not care anymore about what someone once told her. She did not need to send a message back. She did not need to prove anything. When she reached home, she sat once again in front of her keyboard. She pressed that familiar single note, not to practice this time, but simply to remind herself that she mattered. People often wait for big moments, big wins, big praise, big changes. But sometimes life shifts quietly. Sometimes growth is a single note, and sometimes that single note is enough. She turned off the lights, feeling proud, not for being perfect, not for being impressive, but for simply showing up for herself. That night she slept knowing something she had not known before. She was enough, just as she was, and for the rest of her life, anytime she sat down at a piano, she knew that even one note pressed with honesty would belong to her forever.